I'm a grandmother now. And I have one nearly perfect granddaughter named Lily. And when I hold that grandbaby, I feel the continuity of life that unites us. That binds generation to generation, that ties us with each other. And sometimes I spread that Baptist pallet out on the floor, and Lily and I roll a ball back and forth. And I think of all the families like mine, like the one in Lorena. Texas, like the ones that nurture children all across America. And as I look at Lily, I know that it is within families that we learn both the need to respect individual human dignity and to work together for our common good. Within our families, within our nation, it is the same. And as I sit there, I wonder if she'll ever grasp the changes I've seen in my life, if she'll ever believe that there was a time when blacks could not drink from public water fountains. When Hispanic children were punished for speaking Spanish in the public schools, and women couldn't vote. I think of all the political fights I've fought, and all the compromises I've had to accept as part payment. And I think of all the small victories that have added up to national triumphs. And all the things that would never have happened, and all the people who would have been left behind if we had not reasoned and fought and won those battles together. And I will tell Lily that those triumphs were Democratic Party triumphs. I want so much to tell Lily how far we've come, you and I. And as the ball rolls back and forth, I want to tell her how very lucky she is that for all our difference, we are still the greatest nation on this good earth. And our strength lies in the men and women who go to work every day. Who struggle to balance their family and their jobs, and who should never, ever be forgotten. I just hope that, like her grandparents and her great-grandparents before that, Lily goes on to raise her kids with the promise that echoes in homes all across America. That we can do better, and that's what this election is all about. Thank you very much. Adila Shabazz. Address at the Public Memorial for Coretta Scott King. Delivered February 7, 2006 at New Birth Missionary Baptist Church, Atlanta, Georgia. And edited for continuity. It's a big one to balance for a lot of reasons. First, I have to say praise God Almighty that we have been bestowed with such a woman as Coretta Scott King. That, for me, my family, my 5 younger sisters, that our hearts are heavy. But the memory brings on a chuckle and a smile and a caress of warmth. Because of the role she played in our individual lives, after we lost our own mother. Now, on the 6th day of creation, we all know that God created man in his image. But even God knew his work was not done, until he created woman. Bless his heart. How many of you here know that no matter how mighty the man in your midst is, that he could not do it without the caress, the wink, the unconditional love? The pat on the back, the sustenance, the maintenance, of the woman in his life. As I sat there, I looked around and realized how full the room is, probably the viewing audience. And those who cannot touch this room, or cable television, or read a newspaper, for whom Coretta mattered. Yes, indeed, Martin Luther King, Jr. But Coretta Scott King gave people a backbone and a poise. If you didn't have any of your own, you could mimic it at least. You knew what grace looked like. You knew. What poise looked like. And in her it came in brown, which we didn't always get to see forecast before us. We got to see it in wonderment and beauty, just that film. You know. Was she never not cute? I mean, just lovely, just lovely. The nostalgia that I see around with silvering members of the civil rights movement. Marchers, spokespersons, having hit it hard and recovered and sustained. Let me acknowledge one who has not been. We've had the grace of meeting Mrs. Oliver Tambo. Point superscript 1. We know Dr. Hyde. We've heard from the illustrious Dr. Angelou. Mothers of the movement, sustainers of the movement. But one of the mothers who had to live with the same similar thing as my mother and Mrs. King was Mrs. Merle Evers. Point superscript 2. These are women who when no one was looking, they had to maintain, sustain, and they had each other. I want to thank the King family for asking me to speak on behalf of my family. You know, decades ago one would not think that there was any likeness between Malcolm X Shabazz and Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. Junior, so our families aren't united because of something we've done today. It was united because those men started it then, unbeknownst to many. Have you ever seen the picture of the two of them embraced and with a grin this wide? They knew what they stood for. No matter how different, the message was the same. It was to make sure that we as a people in the United States on this globe were inherent beneficiaries of what God had bestowed to all of us at birth. However the means, there are arteries plentiful to meet that heart. A few decades later in the 70s, through the introduction of a journalist and photographer in Ebony magazine, I got to meet the eldest daughter. People were surprised that by then we had not already been an integral part of each other's lives. But I want to say, in our respective households, we were sibling families, if I'm clear, all the while. In this together, wondering what was going on in the threshold of the other house, feeling one another. So, there was a little apprehension. Hope she likes me. She thought the same. Stood in front of a planned posed photographer, whom we both grew up knowing, Maneta Sleet. That was the easy part. We hummed and tapped our foot. And he said, loosen up a little. You know, break a little bread. Then we just started to realize certain things. Not only were we the oldest daughters of our respective families, but our birthdays were a day apart. Could that be fate? We knew we had commonalities. We knew our parents did. Realized that makes us both Scorpio. Uh. Then Manatus Lee took a picture with tonsils and wide tongues. Wide mouths, and that was how the friendship and kinship began with Yolanda King and myself. Shortly thereafter, we founded a national touring company called Nucleus. Which brought us together on a regular basis. Started with 4 shows of presentations and it went up to 16 cities a year. And for 14 years we were on the road meeting people who weren't ready. They didn't think. It could be. They even thought that they could pull one against the other by winking. You know the Malcolmites give you the whatever and the Kingites would, but you wanted to say. No. We're in this together. That's why we're standing together, both of us respectively products of our households. No doubt. We look like our household parents. She had that y'all and that easiness of the South. Which I just loved. Tee-hee. And mine was quick, Northern, and West Indian. Product of my house. And we traveled around just enabling people to see that you can merge. We could still be exactly who we were and function together, be together, make this thing happen together. I wasn't flattered when one picked Malcolm over Martin. I was protective of who he was through her. And vice versa. You're not doing the men any justice by picking one over the other. You're not doing us any justice by picking one over the other. There are many methods for us to get to this union of who we were. Our mothers beautiful women. And I'd like to say, Mayor Franklin, that maybe my mother can have an honorary seat on that freedom choir. When I came home after meeting Yolanda King, my mother sat with bated breath. Wondering how it would all go, as if she were a long-lost daughter of her own. So as we traveled on the road together we got to swap mothers, all of us, as I got to know the King siblings. And feel like their older sibling myself. Very protective I am of each of you in my heart. They were definitely sisters. My mother, Mrs. Coretta Scott King, and Merely Evers would go away for retreats unbeknownst to people, pin curls. Noxima and share that which others could not. And when you saw any of them, grace followed, but not without a keloid under the attire. Not without a continuous rub of aloe vera, coconut oil, a little sag. But the commitment to the mission, to loving their husbands, to raising their children, sustained them. When my mother in 1997 had her accident, the gathering of women surrounded us. I see many of them here. Mrs. King was no doubt a part of that perpetual momentum. When my mother made her transition, Mrs. King was one of the few who maintained regular phone calls. Now I had always called and exchanged cards and things on significant dates, not the Monday that celebrated her husband's birthday. But on exactly January 15th, because there's an intimate association. And we would always, all 6 of my mother's children, receive something in the mail every birthday.